You're listening to the Gutsy Podcast, where we talk about all things real, raw, and ridiculous about running a business authentically. Whether you need an inspirational pick-me-up or a swift kick in the mental ass, the Gutsy Podcast is your bi-weekly guide to getting out of your head and back into action. I'm Laura Ora, branding and mindset coach for female entrepreneurs, CEO of Works & Co., and your host on this journey through entrepreneurship. It's time to fuel your Gutsy. Have you ever considered sharing your story, knowledge, or life lessons on a podcast but aren't sure where to begin? Today's episode with Noémi and Gabor from Podcast Connections will walk you through some best practices when you decide to research and pitch your message to podcast hosts. Noémi and Gabor are a husband and wife team of 13 years and are the owners of Podcast Connections. They help entrepreneurs and business owners find their target audience and build more brand awareness with interviews, establish authority, and increase trust in their niche so they can share their knowledge and connect with quality podcast shows. Before we get into today's episode, I've got to tell you about this phrase that I keep hearing on repeat, and I'd love to know if this rings true for you as well. When I'm talking to women and I ask, "What do you love to do?" the answer is almost always, "I have no idea. I don't know what I like to do. I don't know what I want. And hell, I don't even know who I am anymore." You've likely spent your whole life identifying through other people. As a friend, a sister, a spouse, a mother, a leader, an entrepreneur, a daughter. And all of those beautiful, amazing roles have added so much value to your life. But where are you on that list, my friend? If those phrases that I was saying was ringing true to you and you're nodding your head, you're like, yeah, this fucking resonates with me. It's very likely that it's not that you don't know those answers, is that you've not given yourself permission to lean into what those answers truly are, to allow yourself to feel who you are, what you want, and what makes you feel alive. If you're willing to get curious, I can promise you those answers are already within you. It's one of the things that I fucking love the most about the work that I get to do in this world, is to help women rediscover who the fuck they are and what makes you excited, to relearn what you actually want to do in this world, how you want to spend your time, what makes you happy, and what helps you feel fulfilled. If you're in that part of the journey where you're saying, Laura, I don't know who I am or what I want anymore, but I'm willing to fucking find out, then go to lauraora.com and book a discovery call with me. I can always promise you this. If you don't have a hair-standing aha moment in our 30-minute discussion, if it's not a full body fuck yes for you, then we don't have to go any further. And if you do experience those things, I can promise you that I will support you every step of your journey. All right, my friend, I'm guessing that you're here because you're ready to get more exposure by being on other people's podcasts. This is a great episode. Grab your pen and paper and let's get into it. Noémi and Gabor, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Thank you so much, Laura. We are just so happy to be here, and thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. So long story short, this duo has sent so many wonderful guests that you have heard in the past on the Gutsy Podcast our way. And so it's amazing to connect with the people that have been connecting in the background.
Yes, absolutely. It feels like we know each other for a long time, and finally, we can talk, and yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me, where are you guys located? Where are you in the world today?
We are based in Europe on the tiny Mediterranean island of Cyprus. So yeah, it's a tiny place, and we're just so happy and excited to connect people from all around the world, especially in the US. And we're still here in Europe, sitting on this tiny island. It's fun to do this. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Like, I don't know. I just, the internet will never stop amazing me because, prior to, everything happening and everyone saying yes to themselves and you starting your business and me aligning with my podcast and all these other people that are saying, hey, I want to be on podcasts, like all of that aligned in a space, and the geography is irrelevant. Like we are, it's after 5 p.m. your time, it's first thing here in the morning here in the US, and we're having a conversation across the sea. It's incredible.
Yeah, sometimes we surprise ourselves as well because I think it's happened like 2 times. We connected a host and one of our clients, and it's turned out they living like 10 minutes from each other.
Wow.
So yeah, in the US.
In the US, in Chicago, yeah. So actually they became friends after the interview. So,
oh, my goodness, look at that. And all because everyone said yes to themselves and showed up and you connected them. Like it's brilliant. So you are helping people all around the world become guests on podcasts. And that's definitely what we're going to dig into today. But first, I would love to hear more about your entrepreneurial journey. What has led the two of you to working together and, starting this company to help other podcasters around the world?
Yeah, well, I personally I've been working in the online business world since 2007 when I gave up my job, and I just decided I'm not working for someone else, but I want to be my own boss. And Gabor, my husband, supported me in it, and he told me that's let's do something. Let's find another solution, not just to work for someone else. So we started our own online business in 2007, and so I was a female entrepreneur back in Ireland, because we lived in Ireland before for 7 years, and that's where my entrepreneur journey started. And then Gabor joined me how many years later?
Oh my God. It's 2011.
Yeah, in 2011, like 4 years later, he joined me in the business, but he supported me all the way along. But he was just like kind of part-time in it. So in 2011, we started to do it like properly together, like a husband and wife duo. And since then, we're working 24/7 together and and married for how many years? 20. Oh my, I always forget.
23.
23 years. And,
wow.
And in early 20, so we jump ahead, and in early 20, we actually started Podcast Connections.
Amazing. And I hear that slight chuckle in your voice. And I know a lot of people are thinking like, okay, husband and wife, you're working together all the time. You live together, like basically like you're together. What are some things that you have found works really well for you as a couple, working together, but also being a married couple as well?
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if it's work for everyone or anyone with the same, but maybe we have like different characters, so that helps. I think that's the one. So she is more like an organizer type.
Yeah, I'm the master organizer. That's why I call myself in our bio too, the master organizer.
I'm like the idea guy.
You're more into research and stuff.
And then just like coming up with ideas. So that's kind of different what we do.
It balances out, for both our personality and the job we do. So I think that's why we can cooperate. Yeah.
Honestly, I think that makes a huge difference, right? Because if you both had the same set of skills or personality, that might be more challenging, right? Because one, there's still a role that needs to be filled, but two, like you're both kind of doing the same thing, whereas now it sounds like you really complement one another.
Yeah, right. That's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you find, and I'm curious on this, is what my husband also works with me, so I'm always fascinated by couples that work together. Do you find that you have to have like boundaries about talking about work, or is it just a free flow? Whenever you want to talk about it, you talk about it?
Well, I think it's kind of a free flow. I don't know what about you, Laura, but for us, it's like a free flow. But when we are together with our son and we have like family dinner or Sunday breakfast or something, we try to avoid work. So I think you have to set the boundaries. you can't do it all the time, because it's hard to balance life and work if you work from home and you work together all the time. But you have to find a balance sometimes, especially if you have kids and they don't want to listen to all this boring work stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we usually try to clear the weekend, so that's
No work.
Yeah, I think lately it's working.
Yeah,
we don't talk about work, or maybe it's different because of the time difference, and sometimes it's like, okay, we finish around 6 and try to not to open email after 6.
Yeah, I was actually angry with you one evening, like, because he came into the room and it's like, oh, we got this email and he didn't turn up at the interview, one of our clients, and it's like, oh no, and it's like, you shouldn't tell me this. This is me time. I don't care who turns up at the interview.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Like, there's I'm the same way. It's like there's a certain time of day where I am no longer boss Laura. I am simply Laura. And therefore, I don't want to answer questions about work. I don't want to talk about work. No, we can wait until tomorrow. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, you need to set those boundaries, and you need to have some free time for yourself and me time, and just relax. And
yeah, I mean, because otherwise it can literally take over, like you just mentioned, especially if you're working from home, or you and your spouse work together, or another family member, like, it's just always there. If you're not intentional about setting downtime, it will take over. I can promise.
That's true. Yeah. And it happened to us, especially I think when we started Podcast Connections in early 2020. It did. I mean, it was all about Podcast Connections, but now we're getting more. I think we're getting more free time as time goes. So yeah.
That's great to hear. So, Podcast Connections, when you started this business, what was it about creating connection between people that you thought, you know what, this is what I want to start a business on together?
Basically, I can go back a bit, because one of my mentors was on a lot of podcasts, and he said back in 2020, it's like, oh yeah, lots of people need help to get on podcasts, because it's working, like it's working from him. So that's and he's working in like e-commerce space, and like, oh yeah, we can do something like that, like in a like a side hustle or something like that, I would say. And then we noticed, like, in an e-commerce space, there are less female voices. So we started working on that side first. So get more female voices to the e-commerce space and share their knowledge, really help them share their knowledge on podcasts. So that's how it started, really.
And since then, we have like, it's like 50-50, I think, 50% like male and female clients as well. Not only focusing on the female part, but we give opportunity to everyone. So
sometimes it started out because we had like female clients only, but then there were some guys and they were hosts. I was like, I love your clients. Can I be your client? So from the host side, that's how it started. I think we're coming off with the guy's side as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We need the balance there too. Yeah. It's a good thing.
Well, first, thank you for taking on the initiative to amplify female voices in a very male-dominated space, because that's what we need, right? Like, we need people to support and back up, and to carve a path to say, hey, what you have to say is just as important, so let's hear it. I also want to say, like, especially to anyone listening, if you're hyper focused on one type of audience, I think it's a good reminder to know that, like, that still allows you to say yes or no to someone that may fall out of that, client avatar or target audience, right? Like, you guys chose, even though you were focusing on females, when other types of clients came your way, you got to choose right? Like, yes, I would like to help you, or no, we're not the right fit. And I think that's really important when you're building a business, to know that like you still have choices.
Yeah, right. That's true. I mean,
Yeah.
you need to have those choices, and it's not about like genders. I think when we work together with someone, it's about the personality and how we can work
Yes.
together, how we vibe together. It's so important. And when you have, I think even if you have your first call or discovery call with someone, you know from the first, like I don't know, like 5 minutes that you want to work with that person or not, and it doesn't really
Yes.
matter he, she, or yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. So as you're connecting people, they're getting featured on podcasts, they're being guests, their voice is getting out there. What are some of the impacts that your clients have seen because of being on podcasts?
Okay, I take this one. So there are a few I'm gonna mention. So one of the first client we started working with, she started her podcast and want to be on other podcasts as well. Just get her voice out, get the message out, and make her podcast known. And I think that's one of it's around after like 10 months starting podcast guesting, like 2, 3, or 4 interviews in a month. Her podcasts ranked in the top 200 or top 100 in iTunes in the marketing category. So it's like,
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
yeah, that's helped her a lot. And I think she was invited in a couple of big ones as well. I mean, big podcasts. Okay, so the other one, the client, well, after our client had an interview with the host hired him. So it was like a 5-figure contract. What else? So yeah, the other client was okay. Yeah. The host was putting together like kind of a team, but it's for the referral. So she vetted the experts, because people went to her as like, oh, can you do this for me, or can you do that to me? Like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just doing the podcast, and then I do like a referral team. And one of our clients was chosen for the referral team. So she gets referrals from the host. That's brilliant. Invited in like private group chats, paid speaking opportunities, what come to my mind after someone spoke in an interview.
And I think we can mention ourselves as well, because we just like actively we started podcasting like I don't know, like 5-6 months ago. And it was so funny because after the first 2 podcasts we did, like we had like clients, we got clients from those podcasts. So it, the proof of the pudding, it works like for us as well. So we can tell to our clients too that, it's working. If it works for us, it works for you too. So it's not a big thing about that. You just have to be on podcast and tell your story and tell what you do and, share your knowledge, and people will come to you eventually.
So what do you think is, I mean, these are incredible stories. So what do you think is the impact that being a podcast guest, sharing your voice, in some cases, there's video in addition to the audio. What do you think is so powerful about being on other people's podcasts?
I think one of the most important things is that it's an evergreen content. So it's going to be there, it's going to stay in Google, and whenever someone will type your name into the search engine, they will find you even after years. And like Gabor's mentor, this Irish guy he was talking about, he, for example, got commissions and everything after being on a podcast, like after 5 years later. So it's so funny. It's such an evergreen content you create. And people won't notice that it's like, yeah, I've been on a podcast, like I've been in 2 podcasts, but there's no result yet. And it's like, yeah, but you have to do like more 10, 20 to get those results. And you just have to do it and be consistent with it. And, it it will stay there and people can find you, and building your brand.
And another thing, I think it's important, giving out the message or the knowledge. It depends on the podcast type. So some of them share your story, and other one just share your knowledge, I think. So
Yeah.
And that's just to mention. We had a client, and she had like this, like groupies. So some people was following her around and listening to on different podcasts. So it's like 3-4 different podcasts, and then finally they booked the call, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm following you through this and this and this podcast, and I really want to work with you. So it's when they hear you, I mean, your ideal client, they're gonna connect your story, they're gonna connect your knowledge or appreciate what you are sharing with them, and then that's better than like a sales letter, I would say.
Yeah, better than like an email, or better than like a discovery call or anything like that, because it's more personal. They hear you, or sometimes they see you. So
yeah, and maybe they already know if they want to work with you or they want to buy something from you. That's
I think that there's such power in sharing energetic space with somebody, right? Like I can write Instagram posts, I can write on LinkedIn, I can even make videos on TikTok. But all of that is such short-lived. And when you have an opportunity to exchange energy on a podcast, you get to experience a full conversation, right? Like you get to see the knowledge come out, you get to experience what that person is like, and say, yeah, this energy aligns. And to your point, like, okay, I already knew I kind of wanted to work with them. Now this has sealed the deal. Or in a lot of cases, I'm getting to experience this person for the very first time. And where have they been all my life?
True story. True.
And then just think about it. It's like someone usually listen to podcasts in a car or when they go in for a run. So when you do an interview, even for yourself, you are a host, or like you are sitting with a car like 30-60 minutes with them together, and then they listen to you. So that's I think that's powerful as well.
It's extremely powerful. It also gives, I don't know, I just feel like it gives you the chance to be in front of a group of people that you may have never crossed paths with otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
So usually we tell our client, or like possible client, is like, just imagine you go into a room and there are 50 people who want to hear what you have to say. Or maybe there is 100, maybe 1,000,
or 5,000. It depends. Yeah.
But maybe a smaller the listenership, it's more targeted. So you don't have to worry about. But it's like you want to talk to 50 people who is more likely your ideal client. They usually say yes. So that's that's important. So to the audience as well.
Yeah, it sure is. Hey, side note, Gabor, your audio is a little bit muted. I don't know if you can come closer to the mic, or it's just a little bit hard to hear you.
I changed direction. So
yeah, he was too far from the mic, I think.
No worries. So we are talking specifically to people today that are interested or want to be guests on other people's podcasts. And this even includes like podcast hosts, right? Like these really could be anybody. What are some common mistakes or potential errors that you have seen people make in the past?
As live guests.
Yes, and applying to be a guest and wanting to be a guest, and that outreach process. What are some common things that people were like, you were like, I would actually advise against, or here's a different solution?
Okay, so one is a good example. Like outsource the reach out process for someone who has no clue. It's happened with one of our clients, and it's like give it to maybe the VA or someone, and she told us like, here is 200 podcasts, pitch me to them, yeah. And 200 reach out later. They get back like a few rude reply because it was so terrible. So that's one. Maybe it wasn't the right fit, or the pitch was like kind of general. So I think that's one of the most important. Just identify the right type of podcast you want to be on. So it's not get a list of email and just send it out, but you want to see if it's ideal and possible. The listeners are there who wants to hear you. That's one, I think.
I think the other thing that is really important is to be, when you write an email, just be personal, and when you reach out to a host, try to listen to a couple of episodes of that show, because that's so important. Otherwise you can be personal and you can't reflect on that particular episode. So because sometimes people just sending out general emails without even just have a glimpse of that episode or that podcast, and I think it's not right. I mean, the hosts, you put so much energy, money, everything into those episodes, and so please do listen to the podcast, and at least just 2 episodes, and that will give you an idea what it's all about and if you are the right fit for that podcast.
Yeah, just an example, another one. The e-commerce host received a pitch from a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
So that's not gonna work because the listeners are not there to hear anything about yoga. That's for sure. So it must be
it's really important.
A right fit. So one is they don't. So just don't the mistakes. They don't do the research for the right podcast,
and they don't listen to the episodes at all.
But that's the one. And then just to continue that, maybe the reach out is like too general. What we can see sometimes it's about me, it's like when they reach out and there's like how great I am. So that's the email, or that's the pitch.
Yes,
how great I am. You have to have me on the show. So that's not really a right angle to reach out.
Just try to be a bit more humble, because it always, it's better for you if you are more humble in your emails than just starring yourself in the middle of those emails, how good I am and how I have my, published books and everything. And so just be humble. Yeah. Try not to be too.
Yeah. Then just think about what you can bring to the show and not why you have to be there. So it's like more like the idea you want to be there and what you can deliver, not what you can get out.
Not to be just like a go-getter from those podcasts. Yes. Be a go-giver when you go to a podcast and try to share as much as you can and with the audience and with the hosts. Yeah.
I like that. Don't be a go-getter, be a go-giver. That's really powerful, because I feel like it's just kind of second nature. I would imagine a lot of people aren't intentionally spilling their guts on like everything that they've ever done. They're probably like, oh, I want to impress this person. I want them to think that I'm a quality candidate. So I'm going to tell them about all these achievements. But what you're saying is actually the reverse, is focus less on you, but rather more of how you can be of service or of value. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So I would imagine I've seen, as a host myself, I've seen all types of submissions. I've seen one single sentence that tells me nothing, and I've gotten 8 paragraphs about everything that they've accomplished, which is incredible. But there's like this really beautiful medium between like, okay, you've referenced my podcast in an episode, so I know that you've listened. Now you have my attention. And particularly when people lead with that value, I'd like to talk to your audience about. and what they've learned in business and how they've grown, or something very specific, it's powerful. That initial reach out is really important, which is where I want to kind of shift around back to when you talked about outsourcing it and who you're outsourcing it to. There is kind of a method to the madness.
Yeah, exactly. But whoever, you can do it yourself, but just well, just be prepared. If you anyone can do it for themselves for sure, but they can teach someone. That could be another one option. But first, they have to do it to teach it. I think the best way, and see what is working as well.
And it's the other thing that it came to my mind, it's building a relationship with the host. I mean, that's important as well, to appreciate the work. And yeah, it just try to get to know the person behind it. Like I remember that I always following it up all my hosts on, for example, on LinkedIn, or maybe on Facebook, or any other social media, because it's just you have to know them like a person. It's important for me, not just the host, but as a person as well.
Yeah, that's, like, you're amazing on LinkedIn. You're always connecting with people and posting valuable content, and like nurturing the relationship. I mean, it's like anything else, right? Like, if someone just shows up on your doorstep and it's like, "Hi, buy from me," you're going to be like, "Whoa, who are you? What's going on? Where did you come from?" Like, I have no idea, like, what is happening. Like, there's a process in nurturing the relationships with these people.
Absolutely. It's like once, I think I reached out, that was the early stage of Podcast Connections. And once I reached out to someone on LinkedIn, and I think I did my pitch a bit too early, and I learned my mistake as well. And she told me that was like a very wise saying, that, like, when you meet a girl on a first date, you don't want to marry her straight away. So you have to get to know her. So it's the same with the hosts and with other kind of relationships in the business world. So you don't want to, marry her, buy from someone else you just met. I mean, you have to know them first. It's important.
What are some ways that you recommend building that relationship with a host of a podcast that you would like to be on?
I mean, first of all, what we do is mostly, LinkedIn is a great platform for us, I have to say. It's working really well. And there's one way, and, it was the emails, and I don't know. And the other good thing is to, like, for us, because we're an agency, it's easier for us to get in touch with the host sometimes and just have a quick chat on Zoom. So we just to get to know each other, and just for 15 minutes, half an hour. So we know each other vibes and what it's all about. So we did that many times, and it works well for us. I don't know if you are just like, if you do it for yourself, that would work. If maybe you can do that, why not? You can ask her to just have a quick chat, and if the host is not that busy, they might talk to you. But I think everyone's happy to get in touch with each other and talk to each other, not just sending like cold emails or just, simpler discovery calls. But it's important to get to know each other.
Yeah, just for building those relationships, maybe join the Facebook group
exactly
of the host, or share anything you like of her, maybe on one of the episode, or even leaving a review on iTunes.
Yes,
that's really appreciated usually. Yeah. So these are, they're small gestures, right? We're not, moving mountains here, but we're letting this person know, like, hey, I appreciate what you do. I see and hear what you're putting out there. I value the content that you're putting out there. I'm going to offer some feedback on your most recent episode. I want to comment maybe on some of your LinkedIn stuff. Like, it's like a slow build. And then, so when you're having the conversation about, like, hey, I've been following you for, however many long you want to say, there's some familiarity. And it's like, oh yeah, like, I super appreciate how active you've been, and I'd love to hear more. It's like warming up the relationship, which in my opinion, brings on a lot more opportunity to create a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have a good example for that. I mean, it wasn't like I have a favorite British writer, Heidi Swain, and she's marvelous, and I love her books. And that's one of the podcast hosts we are in touch from Chicago. She asked me, "It's like, can you bring someone on my special edition for Christmas? I need someone. I need something who brings." It's her podcast is about like handmade stuff and makers and artists and everything, but she wanted someone else, something like more specific and for this special Christmas edition. And then it came to my mind, I love Heidi's books, and Heidi's books are, many of them are about Christmas. Why not, get them together and, they can have a chat about that, because her books are all about Christmas. So I got in touch with Heidi, with my favorite writer. So it was an honor that she actually replied to me. And I told her, see, you're not my client or anything like that, but I'm from Podcast Connections. Why not? Would you mind just coming be a guest on a podcast? Would you like to talk about your latest Christmas book? And it's like, yeah, why not? So I got these two people together, one from the UK and one from Chicago, and they had a marvelous interview together. They really enjoyed each other's companies, and the host bought all Heidi's books since then, and they became friends. And she invited Becker for the second Christmas as well. So it's so funny to see these things. So my favorite writer and one of my favorite podcast hosts are together, and they became friends. And she buying her books, and they said if they lived in the same country, they would be friends, like getting together for drinks and stuff. So yeah, it's that's all about.
Sometimes
Wow.
this small stuff. How can you help for someone? Just think about that. Just helping someone. You don't want to ask something, but like, how can you help? Maybe I can refer someone, or maybe I can suggest a guest. Why not? So that could be another one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or even you can have as the host, like, do you want to cover a topic lately in your next month episode coming out? Yeah, anything you can have. Okay, maybe the best way, just figure out how can you help before you ask.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bit proactive on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an incredible reminder that you just never know who knows who. And building connections, putting yourself out there, it really makes a difference. At the beginning of this episode, I talked to you about this statement that I keep hearing, and it's, I don't even know what I like, who I am, or what I want. And what I found is one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself in this type of situation is to get out of your comfort zone, to get out of your own head, to get out of your own house and build those connections and have someone that you can communicate with. Look, your head is a loud ass place. If it's anything like my brain, I know what it sounds like, and it tries to tell you all of this shit that isn't true. I can tell you that the only thing stopping you from rediscovering who you are the voices in your brain telling you that you can't, you shouldn't, you need to focus on other things, you don't have time, you don't have money, insert reason and fear. You are more than all of those things. You have a spark inside of you, you have an idea inside of you, you have a curiosity and an excitement inside of you. And one of the things that I fucking love the most is helping you to uncover what is stopping you from doing all of those things. So if you're ready for that aha moment, go to lauraora.com and book a discovery call today. So let's walk through the process of getting started, because I feel like, okay, I'd love to be guests on other people's shows for right now until I hire a fabulous team like you guys. I want to kind of get the ball started on my side. So you talked about aligning with the right podcast, finding the right target audience and things. How does one go about knowing that piece of information? Where would you start?
Oh, just pointing. Yeah, first of all, I think the most important thing, just if you are committed, you have to come up with some ideas. So it's like what I'm going to talk about. So that's one.
You need to have your topics and talking points, as we say, like in the terms, because you have to be specific about that. Otherwise, the host won't know what you want to talk about. So you have to be really specific and cover those topics and talking points that you are comfortable with. Yeah.
So first, you have a few ideas. So who is my client? You have to know that, and where are they hanging out? And which podcasts are they listening in usually? So
probably, you have to find your niche.
Yeah, you have to have something already, and just come up. How can you find the ideal podcast you want to talk about? Maybe that's another one. So just think about that. Maybe your competitor. You just Google him, her. It's like, oh, where was she speaking? And then you can see the list of podcasts. Maybe use Podchaser. You can get a list. Okay, so maybe those people are doing the same thing what you do. So that can be an idea. It's like, okay, so what kind of podcast you would be targeting for starting out? Where were we? Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Just for a start, just maybe build a list of podcasts you think it would be a good fit. That's one.
And do a lot of research on iTunes. I mean, that's like those podcasts that you think they're a good fit for you. That will give you other options as well that you can check out. It's like, oh, those podcasts are also a good fit for me. So you have to do a lot of research. And that's a huge part of our job too. I mean, that's very important.
And then, as we mentioned, get something ready. So get a few topics and talking points you would like to cover during a podcast. And then reach out to people. So reach out to podcast hosts, as we talked. And not just reach out like after like 3 and you're gonna say it's like nobody replies. Just leave it, it's not working. We can say that could be another mistake.
That could be another mistake, and that's what I talked about. Another like they had a master class, and I had to talk about like how do you do podcast guesting, and so many people forget to follow up those emails. It's so important because sometimes the host don't reply to you because they don't have time, or it went into spam, or anything, and they just don't have time for it. But you have to follow it up like once or twice, and they might reply to you. They just didn't have time to do that at first place, but then they will. So following up emails, it's pretty important. It's a big part of our job as well.
Yeah, and we have clients who said like, I sent out 10 emails and 10 pitches for these 10 podcasts and nobody replied to me, so it's not working. And maybe the pitch wasn't perfect, but doesn't matter really. You have to be consistent and
keep going and be consistent and rinse and repeat. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So we've got we know what we want to talk about, or our topics. We now have identified who is a good match, where we'd like to share these topics with. Talk to me about the pitch. We talked earlier about like too short and too long and talking too much about yourself, but you need to talk a little bit about yourself. Is there a formula, or what are some best practices? What do you look for in a good pitch?
I think the most important is it has to be like sweet and short, because people don't have time to read all those lengthy emails. I heard about like some people sending out like 5 pages of pitches or 5 pages of one-pagers. That should be 1 page, not like 5. So it has to be short and sweet, and it should contain your shorter bio, not too long, not too short. You have to find the right balance. It has to include your social media links and obviously website. That's also important, and obviously that the topics and talking points we talked about.
Yeah, and I think that one of the most important thing about the pitch is connecting you to the podcast itself. So what I mean, so if there was a previous interview, let's say about Facebook advertising, and you do Facebook advertising, you can say, oh, okay, it's like already covered. But what about if you specifically talk about Facebook advertising, but only for the what's it?
You mean a different angle, or
Yeah, it's kind of a different angle. So what kind of topic you can cover? Maybe you talk about the ad creatives. It's like, how can you do that? Okay, yeah, that could be one. So it's like, hey, you talk about the Facebook ads previously, and I have a great topic covering the perfect Facebook creatives. So what working and what not working in 2022. So just try to make that connection, probably a previous episode and previous topic, and how can you elevate that really? So we just make it better. So you can and that's proof the host you listen to the episode as well and what you should do.
That comes back to doing the homework, right? Like if you've not even looked at the last, 5 or 10 shows that they've aired, and they're already talking about what you're talking about, it kind of shows that you're not paying attention and that you're trying to just like add up how many podcasts you've been on versus saying like, okay, I've done the research, I recognize that you've already talked about this, how about we talk about this but from this angle? And I think that also opens up the eyes of the host to say, hey, they're paying attention, and we've not yet talked about this, and this could be valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So the pitch, like lengthwise, if you just kind of had to give it a magic, a good formula, so to speak, is it 2 sentences? Is it 3 paragraphs? Is it something in between? What, just kind of a general idea of like, just so people know, like, oh, okay, this gives me something to reference.
I think like 3 paragraphs would work. And but not more than that, because the host, you don't have time to read everything through, and so try to collect your thoughts and the information you want to share about yourself in shorter sentences. And I think 3 paragraphs would work absolutely.
Something like that. 3.
Something like that. 3, around 3. Yeah, sometimes more, but longer. Depends. Depends. But try to stick to that 3. Yeah, it's a magic number.
Well, and again, coming from a host who is very fortunate to receive a lot of beautiful submissions, less honestly can be more. I want to get the opportunity to learn about the ins and the outs through our conversation, rather reading paragraph. Honestly, when I open the email and I see like, if I have to scroll through the email, and I so appreciate the time and effort that was spent into it, but just from a human connection standpoint, I've already shut down, because I just need to kind of know the high notes to say, okay, yeah, this sounds like this could be a good fit. Or no, maybe not. And when there's so much information, it doesn't even give either one of us the opportunity to make that connection. And that's just speaking honestly. It's just a human thing that I'd love to hear about what you have to say, but less is more.
Yeah, absolutely. Less is more. And we love simplicity and what we do, and in the work we do, we don't like overcomplicate things. So yeah, absolutely, less is definitely more when it comes to.
Yeah, I think it's the same as you would think about yourself, and you receive an email, and then you have to, as you mentioned, scroll down to see the most important thing. You most likely won't do it. So that's why anything important must be on the start or the beginning, and maybe on the second paragraph or something like that. And then just a thing I remember, we started with people with books, and we put that in sometimes in an email. It's like, okay, and she or he also an author of this book. And then what we learn, maybe that's not a good idea after all, because that's for the host side. Sometimes get the idea like, oh yeah,
The wrong idea.
yeah, the wrong idea.
Yeah.
She wants to, just promote the book. That's important. So maybe sometimes, as you mentioned, less is more. And if the host want to learn more about, okay, you were featured in Forbes on whatever, they can figure that out for themselves after you have a nice connection already in the first or second paragraph.
Yeah, but it also depends on the host, because some hosts, they do like people getting on the show who are, like, I would say, like more famous, in quotes. And so it always depends. So that's why it's so important to know your host and you know what they do and know their style. So once you got that, it's you have an easier job to do.
Yeah,
for sure.
For us, we have connections. I don't know. We love a lot of hosts, and then we know most of them, like what they like, what they don't like. So that's a bit easier. But sometimes when you make these new connections, you have to study what they do and what their business is, what they are selling. So you're gonna know.
I also think it's important to know if there is a process for being a guest on the show. And again, that comes back to doing the homework. Because a lot of shows, is there a form? Is there a process to go through? Is there a submission? Like, is there a way to kind of get in the cycle of being considered to be on the show? And not all of them have that, and that's fine. Everyone has their own way of doing things, but I think it's important to know when there is a process, and that you can find that out by going to their website, reading through the content, seeing if there's some call to actions, like really just kind of getting into it versus sending an email out of nowhere, which can sometimes work. But, again, that goes back to getting to know the host and the show and knowing okay, what are the next steps? Have they laid the breadcrumbs for me? Or am I trying to skate around that and do it a different way?
Yeah, exactly. That's other one. It's also important just look for if there are any form you can fill in as guest suggestion. So that's other one.
Yeah, sometimes it's good. I mean, we love forms, but not all the time, I would say, because some of them are a bit more repetitive. when there are hosts with so many application forms. And when the host asks the same question in 3 different ways, it's so funny to see. And it's oh, come on, you already asked this. Why would you? I mean, but it depends on the host, I would say. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so that's important. Usually, you can figure out actually. Just go on a website, and usually there's a podcast page, and usually you can find if there is a way to suggest a guest or suggest yourself as a guest, link to the form or something like that, or even
you can ask the host.
You can ask the host,
and I think that's the most polite way to do it. When I get in touch with them on LinkedIn, I don't just try to pitch everyone to them, and you just ask, do you accept guests? Are you happy to get any? Just to ask their permission, not just swamp them with all these information you want to share with them. Do they want to accept this information? So just be polite, and because they don't have time, they're super busy. So just ask them, and that works too.
And also, if you have to fill out the form, it gives you an idea what they are looking for. So that's important. So that's half with the pitch actually. So just learn the way what they want to hear and what they want to know and what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
I love the simplicity of, are you looking for guests? Are you accepting guests? That is such a, I don't know. To me, that's more like a casual conversation, and versus coming right at somebody with here's everything in my life. Do you want me? Versus being hey, are you even interested in hearing anything? Are you looking for guests? And a lot of times they say yes, and then they'll say, here's the form. And if they're not, then right? You've not wasted your time or theirs.
Yeah, and they respect them. You respect their time. you respect their decision, it's up to them. So that's okay. I mean, that's fine. There are like 2.5 million podcasts out there. So yeah, next one. So, and the most important thing is what we do is like, we take all the no's and the yeses and everything from the host, because sometimes people can get upset, because if you're pitching yourself to a host and you get a no from them, it's like, and you think about it and just you overthink it and overcomplicate things in your mind. It's like, why didn't they accept me? Why am I not a good fit for them? As we take those no's. I mean, if someone says no for that particular client, it's like, that's okay. There's another one.
We don't mind.
You don't take it personally. We don't take it personally, and you don't, the client doesn't have to take it personally. But if you do your own pitches, sometimes that would happen. And yeah.
But one of the hosts said once is like, we are entrepreneurs and we are sensitive people. And it's like, I would say we have ego, and then taking those no's is like hurting our ego, even if we want it or not, it's still there. So that's one way. Is like she said, guys, it's really good you're taking the no's instead of me. So that's
So if you do reach out and they say no to you, that doesn't mean a thing. Yeah. They just don't want you there right now, and they may want you, next year. It happens. And just use a calendar or anything and just put those notes there. When a host tells you that, okay, reach out to me in 6 months, and it's like, yes, I will do that. And, I put it in my calendar in 6 months time, and I do reach out to them. Okay, sometimes they don't reply, but sometimes they do. So do follow up with them if they tell you that, reach out to me in 2 weeks, 2 months, or next year. And just do that. They ask you to do that, and try. And
I would say, it's not my words, but it's like, it's not a no until it's a no. So it applies here as well.
It sure does, for sure. One of my final questions for you is, do you find, is there any difference, or do you have any recommendations in your approach to going after some of the maybe larger, more widely known shows versus some of the maybe less known shows? Is there a difference in that pitch process?
I don't think there's a difference in, they less likely reply to you because they are super busy and they have loads of guests. But I think you do the things the same way as you pitch to we appreciate everyone, and you should appreciate everyone. And it doesn't matter you are on the top of the world in the podcast world, or you are in the mid phase, or you're just starting out. I think you should appreciate their job and what they do. And I don't think it matters who is bigger or not. I mean, sometimes when it comes to a big podcast, obviously you won't get in touch with the host, only with assistants or
a podcast manager. Yeah, maybe that's
gatekeepers.
That could be another one. We had a few big shows, and we haven't talked with the host herself, but we had a meeting with the podcast manager and the sales team. Maybe there's a difference. I don't know if it's better or not. And usually, just mention, if you allow me, I mentioned 2 big podcasts. One is Amy Porterfield, and the other one is the Jenna Kutcher.
Yeah.
They have a guest suggestion form. So there it is. So you can suggest yourself through the form. Be creative.
Yeah, it takes ages.
And it takes 105 years
to get accepted.
I'm not sure.
But it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. You have to. But sometimes, I'm just thinking, big shows. We had, like, sometimes it took 1 hour for a big show to get accepted one of our clients. And
sometimes they will never.
But
so it depends.
That's just, you have to be. I think there need to be 3 different things together. The good timing, so you pitch in the right time, and they are looking for guests, obviously, and the topic is the right fit.
It should be spot on.
What they're looking for. So maybe you need sometimes a little bit of luck of timing. And I think you don't have really control over that one, the timing. So you don't know if they want someone.
It's more about luck,
that's when it comes to the question, looking for a guest or what topic you would like to cover. So that's the other one. You can be a bit upfront.
Yeah, and what I told before about LinkedIn, it also works with big hosts, and it happened to me that I may get to their assistants when I email them or the podcast manager, but if I reach out to them via LinkedIn and I tell them which episode I liked or why I liked that episode and how they are awesome and everything, so and they reply to you, and and it's awesome, and you can get in touch with them directly, for example through LinkedIn. So that would work as well. You have to be creative and just try to talk to them. They are normal persons as well, like you and me and everybody.
Yep. I was just going to say that. They are humans just like the rest of us.
Exactly.
There's literally no difference other than maybe there's a few extra layers of a process. But, I think one of the most important things always, regardless of what you're doing, is to always be you and to stand in your truth and stand in your own intentions and, show up as yourself. And that will resonate with the right people. And if it's a no, that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just, maybe it wasn't the right time or maybe it wasn't the right fit. The universe always knows more than we do. Exactly. So following who you are and saying, why not? Right? Why not try for one of these larger shows? Why not give an opportunity to a brand new show who's, really looking for guests and is just over the moon excited that anyone even knows who their podcast is, right? Like there's every end of the spectrum to say, yeah, let's give this a try. Let's support people in all different ways.
Yeah, and also just think about the small shows in the long run. Should I mention again? Eon Fire. I think we had one of our clients, like she was guest 27, I think 27.
Wow.
That was years ago in Eon Fire. Now I think every month there are 400 people queuing up for that 4 episode they airing. So early on you are better off sometimes.
So I appreciate the small podcast too, because some of our potential clients, or we had our first call with them, it's like, I only want to be on big podcasts. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
So, it doesn't work like that. No, so much of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So much of it is releasing the expectation or like the death grip of like, oh my, like everything's going to fall apart if I don't hear back from them, or like I have to be on this or else I'm not good enough or whatever. It's like, I have found personally that when I just let go and be myself and release the expectation of the outcome, things just flow, right? People do respond and you can get yeses. I mean, I pitch sometimes for guests that, seem completely out of reach, but why not? Why not try? Like if you don't try, the answer will always be no. So, take a risk, release the expectation and roll with it.
Yeah, that's what we say too. It's like, just try. What happens? They say no, and that's okay. I mean,
it's like focus on your intention, not the outcome.
Yeah.
Which is so you think yourselves like, okay, what can I bring to this show? So my intention is like, bring a good topic and do the pitch. And I'm not really focused on like the outcome must be like, I must be on there. So just focus on your intention. With a good intention, you want to bring a great topic, a great show, a great interview. That's what you want to do. And other than that, it's maybe not that important, but maybe it's not the right word, but don't focus on the outcome. You really want something.
Yeah, that's how we started our business as well. Yeah. So we didn't really focus on the outcome, but we started doing it, and then it's working. So
it works, that's for sure. Well, this has been a really great conversation about just like a totally different angle. So I appreciate your knowledge and your expertise. I want to make sure everyone knows where to find you and how to get in touch, and especially if they're looking to be guests on other people's podcasts and need some assistance. Give us all the goods. Where can we find you?
Sure. Our website is podcastconnections.co. You can find us there. And if you wish to speak to us, you can just, subscribe, and we are happy to have a chat with you. And we are very active, as you said before, Laura, on LinkedIn. So if you just type my name in, Noémi Beres, and you will find me there. And, I'm happy to connect with you. I'm also available on Facebook, but I'm less active on there. So I would say through our website and LinkedIn, you will definitely find us.
Yeah, we are happy to have a chat and see if podcasting is for you
or not. Yeah.
Or how can we help if not, it's not for you. So that's
exactly.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to link all of your social media and your website in the show notes. And I would love to know what the word gutsy means to the two of you.
It means, I think for me, you can tell yourself as well, it means for me to be brave and bold and do your stuff and be yourself. And if you want to be taken seriously, be consistent, be gutsy. That's for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the same. So if you want to do something, just do it. I learned that I think it took for me a while. So just maybe it's coming back to intention. So you want to do something, just focus on your intentions, what you want to do, and not the outcome you want.
Yeah. And have self-confidence. And it's so important. Otherwise, nobody will believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. And that's exactly, and I can see that, and I can still see this in our business and with clients, with keynote speakers, and that many of them, they don't have the self-confidence enough to talk about, to tell their story on podcast, but they can learn it by doing it, because it is a different medium than standing on a stage. So
yeah, and for me especially, I just learned English like later, and maybe 10 years ago, I didn't really think I talk people like in a business world. I talk daily, maybe not daily, maybe the weekly.
Yeah,
like how they are in their business or their leadership.
Or you are on a podcast.
Or I'm on a podcast. Yeah, that's a different one. Yeah. So, that's.
Yeah, it's those are beautiful reminders, the confidence and saying yes to yourself, and letting go of the expectations and going for it, and knowing that, some things work and some things don't, and everything works out the way that it's supposed to.
True. Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time. Again, thank you for sending such miraculous guests our way. I know that our listeners love to hear their stories. And I know that your guests, or your clients rather, which I guess are also guests, they appreciate you and what you do, because it takes time, it takes effort. And when you can have a dynamic duo on your team helping to support that, I know that that's fantastic. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for your kind words, Laura. And, we appreciate you and working with you as well. And we were just so happy to be interviewed by you and be on your show. It's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you for the conversation.
Absolutely.
You got it. Anytime and always. All right. Thanks. On this Thursday's Power Back, we're going to talk about how to move forward when you're feeling stuck. We've all had those moments, right? You're staring at your computer. You know that there are things to do. You know that you want to move forward. Even deep down inside you, you have a goal and a dream, and something's going on in there, and you're like, I'm ready. Or you're working at a job that is no longer fulfilling you, and you want to make a change. Or there's something calling you in life. You can see it, you can feel it, hell, you can even taste it sometimes. Yet your body and your mind sit still. On this Thursday's Power Back, we're going to talk about what's causing you to feel stuck in the first place and how to move through it. If you had an aha moment during today's episode, I would big, puffy heart love and appreciate if you could go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for other potential listeners. And get social with me. Connect with me on TikTok and Instagram. You can find me using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.